The loudest person in the room is rarely the smartest. Sometimes, the greatest achievements in human history are built in complete, deafening silence. And sometimes, the very people you mock today will be the ones holding your life in their hands tomorrow. This is the story of a man named Elias. Nestled in a lush, prosperous valley was the booming town of Oakhaven. Money was flowing. The townspeople had recently discovered a rich vein of coal in the nearby mountains, and overnight, everyone became wealthy. They tore down their modest wooden homes. In their place, they built massive, flashy mansions with marble floors and towering glass windows. They bought expensive carriages. They wore imported silk. But Elias did none of that. Elias was a carpenter. His hands were calloused. His clothes were covered in sawdust, and his boots were held together by twine. While the rest of the town built their mansions down in the beautiful flat valley, Elias bought a worthless, rocky plot of land high up on the steepest hill. People whispered about him. Then, the whispers turned into laughter. Elias didn't build a mansion. Instead, he started building a massive, ugly, windowless structure out of thick, heavy oak beams. It looked like a giant, reinforced warehouse. The town's wealthiest merchant, a man named Silas, would often ride his expensive horse up the hill just to mock him. "What are you building, old man?" Silas would laugh. "A prison for your own stupidity?" Elias would not say a word. He would just wipe the sweat from his brow, pick up his hammer, and continue striking the iron nails. Clang, clang, clang. His silence infuriated the town. For 5 long years, this was the routine. The town celebrated their wealth with nightly feasts and loud music. Elias spent every penny he earned on reinforced steel brackets, waterproof pitch, and the thickest timber he could find. He didn't eat meat. He survived on stale bread and vegetable broth so he could buy more materials. In the harsh winters, while the townspeople sat by grand fireplaces, Elias worked outside in the freezing wind, his fingers bleeding. Children would throw stones at his giant, strange building. Adults called him the mad carpenter of the hill. They said he had lost his mind to poverty. But what they didn't know was that Elias was a reader. Years ago, in the basement of the Old Town Library, Elias had found a dusty, forgotten journal. It belonged to the town's original founder. The journal contained a terrifying warning. Every 100 years, the valley experienced a freak weather event. A storm so powerful, it turned the nearby river into a raging ocean, wiping the valley floor completely clean. Elias did the math. The 100th year was approaching. He tried to warn the mayor once. They laughed him out of the town hall. So, Elias made a choice. He stopped talking. He started building. He knew that trying to convince arrogant people with words was a waste of breath. You cannot argue with ego. You can only prepare for reality. And so, he endured 5 years of humiliation, 5 years of being the town joke. He swallowed his pride, and he let the hammer do the talking. It happened on a Tuesday evening in late September. The sky didn't just turn dark, it turned a bruised, sickening purple. The air grew completely still. Then, the first drop fell. It wasn't a normal rain. It was a deluge, a solid sheet of water that slammed into the valley like a hammer. At first, the townspeople weren't worried. They sat in their marble mansions, drinking wine, watching the storm through their giant glass windows. But after 10 hours of non-stop rain, the river breached its banks. By midnight, the water in the valley was 2 feet deep. By 2 a.m., it was 5 feet deep, and flowing with the violent force of an avalanche. The flashy, expensive mansions had been built for beauty, not for survival. Their foundations, dug into soft valley soil, began to shift. The giant glass windows shattered under the pressure of the rising water and flying debris. Panic erupted. Screams echoed through the valley, barely audible over the roaring thunder. People abandoned their gold, their silks, and their expensive carriages. They waded out into the freezing, churning black water, fighting for their lives. There was only one place to go: up. Hundreds of soaking, freezing, terrified townspeople clawed their way up the muddy, treacherous hill. Lightning flashed, revealing the destruction below. Their beautiful town was gone. It was just a raging lake of mud and debris. When they finally reached the top of the hill, they fell to their knees in the mud. There, standing firm against the hurricane-force winds, was the mad carpenter's building. The thick oak beams didn't budge. The reinforced steel held strong. And standing at the massive wooden doors, holding a glowing lantern, was Elias. The merchant, Silas, covered in mud and shivering violently, crawled to Elias's feet. The man who had mocked Elias for 5 years looked up, tears streaming down his face. "Please," Silas begged, his voice cracking. "We have nowhere to go, please." This was Elias's moment. He could have gloated. He could have reminded them of every insult, every stone thrown, every joke made at his expense. But Elias was a builder, not a destroyer. He looked at the shivering crowd. He stepped aside. He pushed the massive, heavy doors open, revealing a warm, dry, massive interior lined with cots, blankets, and stored food. Elias looked at Silas and spoke his first words to the merchant in 5 years. "Come inside," he said quietly. "It's warm." The storm raged for 3 days. Inside Elias's shelter, the townspeople survived. When the water finally receded, they walked out to find their wealth completely erased. But they had their lives. They realized that the man they thought was a fool was the only true visionary among them. Never let the mockery of others stop you from building your foundation. People will laugh at your discipline. They will call you crazy for sacrificing your today for your tomorrow. But when the storms of life hit, and they always hit, the loudest critics will always come running to the quiet builders for shelter. If you are quietly building your future right now, drop a 100 in the comments to claim this energy. Don't forget to subscribe, and share this with someone who needs a reminder to keep going. Until next time, stay strong and keep building.